must be shelter from the storm. We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even a free can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? Spend my time in the alley, hiding in shadows to avoid the light of day. But there's a place I'm told where the people dare to love. I'm a freak, but I believe there must be shelter from the storm. We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even a free can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? Spend my time in the alley, hiding in shadows to avoid the light of day. But there's a place I'm told where the people dare to love. I'm a free, but I believe there must be shelter from the storm. We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even a free can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I've got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? Spend my time in the alley, hiding in shadows to avoid the light of day. But there's a place I'm told where the people dare to love. I'm a freak, but I believe there must be shelter from the storm. We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even a freak can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I've got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? Spend my time in the alley, hiding in shadows to avoid the light of day. But there's a place I'm told where the people dare to love. I'm a freak, but I believe there must be shelter from the storm. We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even a freak can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I've got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold. Yeah, even free can feel alone. Coming inside, you're finally home. How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm?
Welcome to the Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Rosemary, and I am so glad we can connect during this time through the power of technology. Please be aware that this service is being live streamed and recorded. You can also find subtitles in one of your menu options at the bottom of the screen. Today is our second Sunday using Zoom as a way to create more connection, even as we're apart. We are still posting the services to YouTube, and you are welcome to join us that way, but you will be missing, and you will miss being able to participate via the Zoom chat feature. We are all learning how to do this, so please give us the grace as well. The goal here is connection, not perfection. We are all of us always learning. Today, we have a guest in our virtual pulpit. The Reverend Lisa Bovey-Kemper shares reflections on what it means to her to stay queer in honor of National Coming Out Day, which is tomorrow. Reverend Lisa has selected our chalice lighting, which is a call to worship by Reverend Elizabeth Mount. We begin our time together by lighting our chalice. If you have a chalice or a candle that you would like to light with me, please join me now. Come into this place, bringing all you hold with you. Though your heart be heavily burdened, whether you be on the brink of tears or burn with unquenchable rage, this community can hold you and your strongest emotions. Yes, even the messy ones are welcome here. Come in if you sing just a little too loud. If you hold still as statues and just breathe in. If you sway to the music moving your soul, you are welcome. Come in and say amen when the Spirit moves you. Tell that preacher to preach, yes, that's right, tell us. Or close your eyes and quietly let your mind float free on the blessed words. Come into this place with every piece of you, with every piece of yourself gathered up, and let us be the church incarnate. Let us bring forth the spirit of all that we love by the words of our mouths and the doing of our hands as we make sacred this time together. Come, let us worship together. Our story today was originally adapted from a 1940s allegory written by George Rivas, the Assistant Superintendent of Cincinnati Public Schools. Unitarian Universalist minister Devorah Greenstein adapted and radicalized the story for our use, with illustrations and narration by Tiffany Sapp This is animal school.
Many years ago, the animals of the Great Forest decided they wanted to start a school for all their children. Until that time, it had been the responsibility of parents to teach their children the skills they needed to know. But the animals in the Great Forest wanted their children to learn from professional teachers, so they organized a school and hired a staff. The teachers met and decided to provide a standardized educational curriculum to their animal students. So they adopted an activity curriculum that consisted of swimming, running, flying, and climbing. All the animals took all the subjects because it was very important to them that no child be left behind. To ensure that students were progressing satisfactorily, standardized achievement tests were administered to all of the students. Here's what happened. The ducks were excellent in swimming. In fact, the ducks were better than their teacher. But some of the ducks only made passing grades in flying, and all of them were very poor in running. Since they were slow in running, they had to stay after school for remedial running practice. And they had to drop swimming in order to practice running during their swimming class time. This was kept up until all the ducks' webbed feet were very sore. And the ducks were so tired that soon they were only average in swimming. But average was acceptable in school, so nobody worried about that, except the ducks. In running, the rabbits started at the top of the class, but they did very poorly in swimming. Also, the rabbits insisted on hopping around, and the teachers were concerned about their hyperactivity. So they made the rabbits walk everywhere instead of allowing them to run or hop. And the rabbits had to come in early every day for special swimming class. Many of the younger rabbits developed severe fur problems because they were having to spend so much time in the swimming pool. The squirrels were excellent in climbing and running. In fact, the squirrels were the best students at climbing the standardized tree. But they wanted to fly by first climbing the tree, then spreading their paws and gliding to the ground. That's the way squirrels fly. But in flying class, their teacher made them start on the ground instead of at the treetop, and the squirrels were not mastering the course material. So every day, the squirrels had therapy. A flying therapist took the squirrels into the gym and made them do front paw exercises to strengthen their muscles so they could learn to fly the right way. The squirrels' paws hurt so much from this overexertion that some of them only got a C in climbing. Some of the squirrels failed climbing altogether. The hummingbirds were definitely problem children. In climbing class, the hummingbirds beat all the others to the top of the tree, but they insisted on using their own way to get there and were quite stubborn about it. The hummingbird said that clearly it was the goal that mattered, and that it was quite right for hummingbirds to get to the top of the tree by flying. The school psychologist diagnosed them as having oppositional defiant disorder. A strict behavior modification plan was developed for the hummingbirds. Now, there are two endings to this story. Sad to say, in some schools, we still make squirrel children try to learn to fly by flapping their paws and punish hummingbirds for being defiant about their right to be themselves. But happy to say, in some schools, we enjoy all children for themselves. Each squirrel is a perfectly wonderful squirrel. Each rabbit a lovely rabbit, whether or not they choose to hop or skip or roll or walk. Each hummingbird is allowed to be a hummingbird, and we encourage each duck to swim and swim and swim and not worry about learning to run.
How strange it is to expect ducks to be expert runners or rabbits to be expert swimmers. It seems to me that we're each unique in our own ways, and those things should be celebrated. I wonder, what things are you uniquely good at? Is there an animal that you think symbolizes that? I hope you will all share your thoughts in the chat. And I hope any kids watching might think about what you're really good at and maybe draw us an animal that you think would be good at that too. The hummingbirds in our story challenged artificial senses of norms, and in our special music offering, Karis and her friend Phil do the same. This playful and dramatic original piece invites us to stay queer. This is calling out to the world.
Calling out to the world again, calling out to the world. What do you get when he crosses the road? What do you get with the bear? Oh dear, they're a killing machine. What have we done to the deer? Oh, try to bite their alive in spite of the hatchets we took to the logs.
One of the blessings of being together in Zoom is that we can hold each other's joys and concerns together as a community. If you're with us in Zoom, you can type in the chat box who or what you are holding in care in your heart that you want your community to hold with you. This week, they will not be read out loud, but I encourage you to read the chat so that you can hold each other's joys and concerns together. We acknowledge all of those affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, which frankly is all of us, and some more than others. As of today, 4,842,788 people have died worldwide from COVID-19. Let us enter into a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Feel the earth beneath your feet as it supports you. Feel the love of this community as it surrounds and unfolds you. Feel your breath as it flows in and out of your body. Listen to your heartbeat. Listen to your heart. And how is it with your heart? Does your heart feel whole, shielded by intellect, cocooned by reason, closed to feeling? Or is it broken, fragile to the touch, brimming with the pain of loss? Or has your heart been broken and healed so many times that it now lies open to the world, knowing that true growth comes not without pain, that tears may wear down barriers, that we may carry the hearts of others, even when our own is too heavy for us to bear? None of us has an unblemished heart, not one. For such perfection can be found only in death, and we who are alive still have much to heal. So let us give thanks for the broken places in our hearts and in our lives. For it is only through such brokenness that we may truly touch one another, and only through touching one another that the world may be healed. let us give thanks for the brokenness that we share. Holding all of this, all of the chat, and whatever remains unspoken in our hearts, we center our practice in loving kindness. Today's message comes from Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Lisa Bovey Kemper. She is a graduate of Andover Newton Theological School and Oberlin College, and has served as both a parish minister and a hospital chaplain. She currently serves at Greenville Unitarian Universalist Fellowship as their developmental minister. And before that, she served the UU congregation of Asheville, where she had primary responsibility for the social justice, pastoral care, and membership programs of the congregation. She lives in Greenville, South Carolina, with her wife, 2 kids, and 2 cats. Reverend Lisa actually did her pre-candidating sermon for her position in Asheville here at Holston Valley many years ago, and is delighted to be with us again. Reverend Lisa's message is Staying Queer, but first she will share with us a reading titled Kaleidoscope by Elizabeth Tarbox.
This is a reading by Elizabeth Tarbox. Through a kaleidoscope, the world becomes fractured, divided 24 ways in symmetrical pieces. A single candle flame becomes 24 flickering candles, each a perfect replica of the other. The mundane is made exquisite when it is placed in a pattern of identical squares. The ordinary becomes the mystical when it is seen through a prism. Is this how life is, if only we step back far enough to see it? A kaleidoscope of events joining, merging, dancing in rhythmic harmony. Could we appreciate the order of life if we were not one of the fragments? But we are in it, of it, not observers of the pattern, but part of the very texture of which it is constructed. There may be a plan, but we will never be able to stand back far enough to appreciate it. Somewhere, life may make sense to a great cosmic someone, but not to us here. Not to us, splintered in a struggle to do what is right in a world that presents us with complex, competing options. We may never see the larger picture, creation's perfected whole. We may be forever flickering fragments, fractured by the raw reality of immediacy from which there is no escape while we are alive. Well then, let us dance in the flame that we see. Let the arc of our creativity embrace our moments of time, and let us add our light to the kaleidoscope, trusting in the unity of the whole, even as we seek symmetry with the part. It was 6 years ago next week that I officiated the first legal same-gender wedding in North Carolina. It was both a deeply personal moment and a dramatically public one. That day and the days leading up to it were full of gifts, both expected and surprising. It had been a long road, as you know from your work in Tennessee. My wife and I and the congregation I was serving at the time had joined the Campaign for Southern Equality more than once at the Register of Deeds office in Asheville and elsewhere in North Carolina. I even came to what is now my hometown in Greenville for a We Do action. We had helped with the campaign to defeat Amendment 1. We grieved together when it passed. So by Friday, October 10th at 5 p.m., I had moved my office, and this was before we were all working remotely pretty much every day anyway. So I had moved my office to the basement of First Congregational Church United Church of Christ in Asheville, where the Campaign for Southern Equality offices were. And I had joined that day a small group of community activists who were waiting and waiting and waiting for the ruling on the Obergefell case. We were mostly pretending that we were doing our regular work and constantly checking the news headlines and refreshing the Supreme Court website and all of that, and drinking a lot of coffee, of course. That day, I sent countless emails to the congregation with different tidbits of different plans, plus 2 different action alerts, because everybody was waiting and ready for the go signal to put our day 1 plan into action. We had come up with a plan for what we were calling day 1 of marriage equality, and we were going to open the congregation up, the church sanctuary up, and do free weddings, which we ended up doing. But at this point on October 10th, things were at the same time moving very quickly and slower than molasses. But once the order came, once the ruling was made and the celebration began, what was so powerful to me, whether it was that day or another day, was how Unitarian Universalists everywhere showed up. People who weren't members of our churches, who weren't Unitarian Universalists, knew that we would be doing something to celebrate. And so they came to join the party and to help out wherever it was needed, just as we do so often when something bad happens in the community. But this time, the pure joy showed on the gathered faces as folks banded together in their gold shirts, hugging and celebrating, cheering when each new couple came out with their license or was pronounced legally married on the steps of the Register of Deeds. Friends, marriage matters. It matters because of the legal rights, and it matters because calling a union of 2 people in a lifetime partnership anything other than marriage makes it separate but equal, and that is unconstitutional. At the same time, marriage was always and ever just the beginning. Marriage equality didn't stop employers from being able to fire someone on Monday because they got married on that happy Friday and a picture was posted on Facebook. Marriage equality didn't give trans and non-binary people non-discrimination protections, access to unbiased healthcare, and it didn't stop the strongly held belief arguments about refusing people service due to their sexual orientation or gender identity. And as it turns out, Obergefell is still under threat. As Justices Alito and Thomas said a year or so ago, they want the Supreme Court to strike it down. It has been a frightening time for many of us, even though our marriages are legal. But I have thought for a long time that marriage is not actually the sticking point in this conversation. I've worked in churches for a long time, and I have a saying, based on that experience, that it's never about the hymnals. There's a joke among ministers that if you want to split a congregation, try to change the hymnals or the paint color in the parlor. People will freak out. And so I hold that it is never about the hymnals or the paint. There's always an emotional response that is rooted in a deeper place. And in many or most cases, my work as a minister is to tease out what the deeper emotional response is about. This is good advice for any system, by the way. Conflict is rarely resolved by solving the surface level issue. Always look deeper. It's never about the hymnals. And so I hold that for the most part, the fight against marriage equality is not fundamentally about marriage itself. We see over and over and over again that some opponents of equal marriage will say that they support legal rights for couples as long as it is not called marriage. We hear them say that marriage has always been between one man and one woman for the purposes of procreation. And the Christian opponents will say that they are fighting for biblical marriage. And that's not historically accurate either. It's not even really biblically accurate. But that's another sermon. So if the question of who gets to be married is not the fundamental one, then what is? Same-gender marriage is threatening because it does not fit into traditional gender roles. There is a religious construct in much of Western culture that holds that men are dominant and women subservient. I mean, obviously that's the patriarchy at work, and it's much bigger than religion. But the religious narrative in the US is predominantly Christian, and even outside the US, we see the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, as largely dominant in Western culture. So that this dominant narrative is that God is male, God is in charge, and human relationships are based on God's relationship with humans. Therefore, the man becomes like God in a relationship. It is a construct that permeates our culture, for better or for worse, so to speak. In general, fundamentalist religions, and sometimes even systems that are not religious, fundamentalist religions of all kinds rely on this patriarchal structure, which is sometimes called the domination system, to manage relationships and to keep a level of control over society. Of course, this is not how we construct things as Unitarian Universalists, but the cultural norms around us still have a massive impact. Traditional gender roles are part of the racist and misogynist system that dominates our society. We see this phenomenon in the common question that queer couples get. But I don't understand. Who is the man and who is the woman? And you might think that that's not a question that people ask anymore, but it's not true. I have been asked that question as recently as in the last year. This question implies that there is no way to be a couple that doesn't include a male role and a female role. And further, it assumes that there is only one way to be a man and only one way to be a woman. And that is where we find the greatest gift of queer community. In queer community, we bend and we change and we do what works best for us. We push the envelope and live at the margins of things. Most queer couples I know, if not all, have negotiated roles in their relationship because there isn't a fundamental assumption that one person is the man and one is the woman. And if that assumption is not present, then we also are not assuming that the mannish person, whatever that means, will do the manly things and the womanish person will do the womanly things. We assume in our relationships that we are people, each of us, who have different strengths and gifts, and therefore we create a structure that makes sense for us in our individual lives and relationships. And I know that more and more heterosexual couples are negotiating roles instead of accepting traditional male and female roles, which is totally great. But it is also deeply threatening to the status quo because the success of the domination system requires that everyone stay in their place. Men should be strong and non-emotional. Women should be sexy and nurturing. Black men should be thugs. Poor people should stay poor. Our willingness and ability to choose our own roles, to understand that identity is complex and malleable, that is the true threat of equal marriage. We see over and over and over again in the history of queer life, many people who went their own ways, not publicly. They weren't out as we think of it now, but they found their way through a culture that was not welcoming. And they continued to claim their own queer identity. They created community with one another. They created codes and signals to help keep each other safe, and they survived in a culture that did not welcome them. And codes and signals are still necessary in places where LGBTQ persons aren't widely accepted. In some ways, we are still living in amazing times. So many changes have happened, and for a while, there was more safety for some queer folks than we've ever imagined. But that experience was never universal, and it was never as simple as just making sure everyone who wants to can get married. During this time of marriage equality becoming law, I heard a colleague say in a news interview that with marriage equality, LGBTQ couples can just be as dull as everyone else. And while I appreciate the sentiment, I appreciate where that colleague was coming from, I don't agree. I don't want us to be empowered to be dull. I want us to be fabulous. I want to be able to live my own boring life with my wife and my kids and apparently a lot of cats in my house. But I want our community as a whole, including my family, to continue to be able to push the edges of culture and expectation and continue to embrace our queer identities. The goal, if you ask me, is not to assimilate, but to achieve full legal equality so that we all have the ability to live our most full and authentic lives with legal protections for our families, biological and otherwise. But that's not all I want. I want more. I want everyone to have the opportunity to be fabulously whole, not just those of us who identify as LGBT. Feminism has the same intention, though it often gets a bad rep as encouraging man-hating. But the truth is that the more of us who are able to live out our true identities, free of gender stereotypes and expectations, the more whole we all can be. Friends, intersectionality is real, and it is central to this struggle. The trouble with the dominant construct as it stands today is that it accepts the premise that justice and wholeness are finite resources. It assumes that if I have more justice, there is less available for you. But like love, justice is multiplied when it is shared. If I can live out my own truth, I am more likely to want you to live out your truth. This community is one that celebrates all paths, that wants everyone to find a place in society, that answers the call of love in many different ways. And so we come to the words of Elizabeth Tarbox. We may never see the larger picture, creation's perfected whole. We may be forever flickering fragments, fractured by the raw reality of immediacy from which there is no escape while we are alive. Life is about embracing our role as a fragment of that gorgeous, creative whole with authenticity and self-awareness. What is my inner voice telling me? How do I honor my whole self? And by honoring myself, honor the whole. How do you honor your whole self? And by honoring yourself, honor the whole. And that is our work here in this community, to find ways to help one another discern and listen to that inner voice, to save the lives we can save, starting with our own. We see the intention in our fourth principle in this, a free and responsible search for meaning. That's the part where we all have our own path, our own teacher, our own understanding. We also see the third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. That's the part where we support one another. Our work is to discern a path together as we each explore our own paths. When I claim my queer self, I am modeling a possibility for others, and the same is true for you. You may not be a part of the LGBTQ community, but this idea of queerness offers a possibility to all. For me, it is the construct that drives my constant work for justice, equity, access, and compassion for all. So today I invite you to think about the ways that you allow the status quo to influence your life. How does your fear or caring about the expectations of others stop you from being who you are? Coming out is a process of owning, learning, and sharing our experiences and the stories of living our truth. It is an opportunity to show folks who are in the closet that another way is possible, even if they are not in a position to come out right now. But coming out is also a lifelong process. Learning to speak your personal truth and honor your own needs and self is a lifelong process. Let us seek our inner truths together. Let us be guides for one another. And let us never, never, never stop fighting until all of us are free. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Let's extinguish the chalice together. Our kaleidoscope of many lights, many identities, many authenticities. They shine brightly in community. As we extinguish this chalice, we carry our lights into the world. There are many ways we can live out our commitment to Unitarian Universalist principles. Check out the announcement slides during the postlude to see how you can get more involved. One thing you can do, if you haven't already, is get vaccinated and make choices to stop the spread of COVID-19. Reverend Tiffany would like to invite you all to join her at the next Black-White Dialogue Zoom meeting, where we will listen to an exploration of the 6 stages that a white person goes through when they waken up to the realities of racism. These stages are presented by Christina Cleveland, a Black university professor who has witnessed this process many times firsthand. Interspersed throughout Dr. Cleveland's exploration will be an opportunity for us to discuss and interact with the material. This will be tomorrow, Monday, October 11th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. The Zoom link is on our website in the news section. And come on out to the Grand Oak Farm starting on Saturday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. for some fireside fall fun. Costumes, candy, pumpkins, and just a chance for us to be together. You can find more information about this event and how to register on our website. Our postlude is Freak and comes from Wendy Hurl and Chameleon Red as she reflects on her journey of embracing her own identity. This song comes from Wendy's rock opera Transposition and takes place during the main character's lowest point. But it is during this low point that she searches for and finds the community where she belongs. May we strive constantly to live up to that ideal as a community. But first, Reverend Lisa reminds us of that calling in her benediction.
I leave you this morning with the words of Elizabeth Tarbox. Well then, friends, let us dance in the flame that we see. Let the arc of our creativity embrace our moments of time, and let us add our light to the kaleidoscope, trusting in the unity of the whole, even as we seek symmetry with the part. Friends, go in peace, and always with love.
How much longer must I run? How many times will I be driven away? I don't wanna die tonight, but I've got no reason to live. I'm a freak. Tell me please, where is shelter in this storm? We all need a hand to hold, a place to run when the heart gets cold.